The movie starts with a famous consulting office that deals with important cases for powerful people. The boss is Theodore Teddy Moretto, and he's in trouble with the law because he cheated his clients and took their valuable stuff. One day, as he was driving home, his car blew up, but he managed to survive. Realizing he was in deep trouble, he decided to surrender to the police for protection in jail. Once he turned himself in, they took him to a house in the middle of nowhere. The FBI was after him too, and there was a shootout between them and the cops. Moretto used the chaos to escape in a police car, but it ran out of gas, so he had to continue on foot toward the city. As he approached the casino, he witnessed a chaotic scene, with cops rushing to restore order. Moretto, still trying to avoid going to jail, intentionally attacked a female officer named Valerie Valyoung on duty, leading to his arrest. Suddenly, from a distance, an unknown man watched Moretto closely as his target. Later on, some patrolling police officers narrowly avoided being hit by a car driven by a drunk man named Robert K. Bob Vidic. Consequently, Vidic was arrested and brought to the police station for safety. When the police searched Vidic, they found no identification, only discovering an insulin device in his jacket, which they confiscated. After the search, they placed Vidic in the same cell with other intoxicated individuals who had been arrested for public violations. Shortly after the cops left the cell area, Vidic, who had initially seemed intoxicated, suddenly sobered up and glanced at Moretto in the adjacent cell. Surprisingly, Vidic turned out to be a professional assassin hired by one of Moretto's victims to take down the notorious fraudster and retrieve the stolen items. With his expertise, Vidic intentionally caused a ruckus, getting himself arrested to get closer to Moretto in prison and complete his mission. Once Moretto learned that Vidic was on his trail, he attempted to negotiate, offering a higher payment to Vidic's client with the condition that the hitman spare his life. Despite the substantial offer, Vidic declined, as he was known for always fulfilling his client's missions. Shortly after, the intoxicated guy sharing the cell with Vidic woke up and started making comments about the hitman's appearance. Vidic, who initially tolerated the man named Ben's chatter, suddenly attacked him just when the insulin device, previously confiscated by the police, emitted smoke, triggering the fire alarm in the police station. Moretto, witnessing Vidic's attack on Ben, yelled for help from the officers, but they were preoccupied with the alarms and smoke in the office. After Vidic made it difficult for Ben to breathe by striking his neck, the assassin pretended to panic and called for assistance from the officers outside the cell area. Surgeon Dwayne Mitchell rushed in upon hearing the commotion from inside the cell and discovered Ben, who had collapsed and was struggling to breathe. Ignoring Moretto's warnings, Dwayne opened the cell to check on Ben, falling into Vidic's trap. As Moretto suspected, when Dwayne let his guard down, the hitman attacked the surgeon until he fell unconscious, allowing Vidic to grab a gun and fire at Moretto's cell. Fortunately, Moretto swiftly dodged the bullets and took cover under the bed. Seeing his target in hiding, Vidic, who also took the cell key from Dwayne, stepped out of his cell with the intention of opening Moretto's cell when Young arrived, aiming her gun at Vidic. At that moment, Vidic couldn't put up a fight, and Young had to handcuff him to the iron bars. Young then hurried to check on Dwayne, who luckily wasn't seriously hurt. She also sought help from another police officer to bring Ben, whose condition was worsening. Upon reaching the treatment room, Young noticed that Ben couldn't breathe due to a damaged throat from being struck by a hard object. She attempted to create a hole in his throat and inserted a straw to provide temporary oxygen while waiting for paramedics to arrive. At the same time, a cop named Kuber was spotted secretly making contact with someone related to Vidic, who was behind bars. Meanwhile, another officer named Kimball seemed to be going through Vidic's information, as he was a professional hitman. Kimball continued to dig into data about Vidic and stumbled upon details about another hitman, a sadistic murderer named Anthony Lamb. While Kimball was engrossed in the information, Anthony suddenly showed up at the police station, posing as a courier with birthday balloons. Kimball noticed that Anthony's face resembled the data on his computer, but before he could react, the hitman shot him dead. Shortly after, the medical officer who was supposed to take Ben to the hospital finally arrived. Anthony, still claiming to be a police officer, instructed the two medical officers to examine Kimball. Seizing the opportunity, Anthony killed both of them when they let their guard down. Another cop who discovered his fallen colleague began questioning Anthony about what happened, but the hitman didn't explain and promptly shot the officer. A moment later, Young, who had heard the gunshots, rushed out to intervene in Anthony's erratic actions, but he quickly pulled out an assault rifle and attacked her. She sought refuge in another room to evade Anthony's assault. Huber, who was in the treatment room, heard the gunshots and realized that Anthony had arrived. He took the opportunity to finish off Duane, who was still waiting for medical help. Surprisingly, Huber had joined forces with Anthony to track down Moretto while trying to eliminate their rival, Vidic, in order to get paid by the person who had hired them. Huber then entered the treatment room where Ben lay, and because Ben had witnessed his actions, the police ended up shooting Ben. At the same time, Young was still being pursued by Anthony, who kept firing many bullets at her. When she reached the cell, she quickly changed the entry code for the door, which was made of bulletproof glass, to shield herself from the sadistic assassin's attack. After successfully setting a new code, she entered the main door of the cell room, which was fortified with steel and bulletproof glass. She took cover behind the door while checking her stomach, which had been shot. Outside the door, Anthony appeared confused about how to enter the room, even drawing something on the glass door to show Vidic, who was still handcuffed inside. Since Anthony couldn't get into the cell room, he decided to leave. Soon after, Huber arrived and asked Young for the new code to open the cell door. He claimed that the chaos outside had ended, and everyone else had died in the assassin's attack, leaving him as the only survivor. Young, suspicious of Huber, refused to give him the new code, which annoyed Huber. He then joined forces with Anthony to examine the police station layout, planning to break down the wall of the detention room. Meanwhile, Young felt hopeless as she was injured and trapped with Vidic and Moretto. Moretto tried to persuade her to give him the key to his cell, promising to bring her a medical kit to treat her gunshot wound once he left the cell. Vidic objected to this, warning Young not to trust Moretto, describing him as a big-time con artist who didn't care about others, including Young, who had assisted him. Vidic explained that he had the ability to confront Anthony and handed over the cell key to him. Despite hearing Vidic's explanation, Young appeared to trust Moretto more and threw him the cell key. After leaving the cell, Young also gave Moretto a firearm for protection against attacks from Anthony. Moretto, realizing that Anthony was targeting him outside, told Vidic that he would deal with Anthony first, before returning to the cell room to handle Vidic. Outside the cell room, two patrolling police officers entered the police station and were surprised to find their office empty, with bullet casings scattered around. They heard a noise like someone hitting the wall and went to check, finding Huber destroying the wall leading to the cell room. Before they could ask what was happening, Anthony, not far from Huber, used his assault rifle to knock out the two officers who had just arrived. Just as Huber was about to finish off his surviving colleague, Moretto, who was supposed to get a medical kit for Young, entered the room and shot Huber's colleague dead. Huber and Anthony quickly hid to avoid an unexpected attack from Moretto. Huber, in his panic, dropped Anthony's assault rifle, which Moretto then grabbed. In the cell, Vidic, aware that Moretto had deceived him, used his skills to remove the handcuffs without a key. He asked Young to give him the key to his cell so he could access the medical kit that she needed. At the same time, Moretto was still on the hunt for Anthony and Huber, who were hiding. Surprisingly, Vidic, who had emerged from his cell, discovered where Huber was hiding and subjected him to torture using the room's equipment. He even shot the police officer several times until he died. Anthony witnessed this and didn't hesitate to attack Vidic, resulting in a prolonged fight between the two assassins. However, with Vidic's strength and skills, he ultimately overpowered Anthony, leaving him helpless. Before long, Moretto also entered the room, gun in hand, just as Vidic pointed his weapon at Moretto. Vidic then revealed that he knew Anthony had killed Moretto's wife and children. He offered Moretto the chance to take revenge by killing Anthony himself before Vidic would target Moretto again. Moretto agreed to the offer, and after Vidic left, he ended Anthony's life with his own hands. Moretto decided to set the police station on fire as a way to escape from Vidic. However, as he made his way out, he stopped in the kitchen to grab a bite to eat because he was hungry. Little did he know that Young was there, watching him. Her condition seemed to improve, and she expressed her disappointment with Moretto for lying to her, revealing that it was actually Vidic who had helped treat her gunshot wound before things turned violent. Feeling a new threat from Young, Moretto attacked her and then went to the weapons room to arm himself with a rifle. Amidst the growing flames, they fought, and Moretto, trapped and unable to escape, was eventually subdued by Young. Unfortunately, just as she was about to finish him off, a corrupt detective named Dina Shire shot Young. However, before Dina could harm Young further, Vidic intervened, taking down the corrupt detective to save Young. To complete his mission, Vidic then shot Moretto and left the police station carrying several items that Moretto had stolen from his client. In the end, the film shows Vidic driving away from the police station, while Young is seen leaving the building injured. The moral lesson from this story could be: deception and criminal actions ultimately lead to destruction and chaos, and even those who try to manipulate or escape justice may find themselves facing unexpected consequences.